Hello everyone, today I bring you an updated build for Heal Chronomancer, or as I like to call it, the Boon Generator 2.0. This build can provide permanent quickness or alacrity, 25 might, fury, swiftness, protection, regeneration, stability, aegis and vigor. It also gives a relatively large amount of resolution for condition damage reduction and a little bit of resistance on the side. For trait lines, we use Chaos, Inspiration, and Chronomancer. In Chaos, Metaphysical Rejuvenation grants regeneration when we use a healing skill. Illusionary Defense is important to give out protection. Illusionary Membrane makes it so that whenever we use our F2 Shatter, we gain Chaos Aura. This works well with Chaotic Transference, which makes our Chaos Auras shared to our allies and apply regeneration. Chaos Auras also make it so that when we are hit, we gain a random boon out of protection, regeneration, or swiftness. Chaotic Persistence gives us extra boon and condition duration while we have regeneration up. And Bountiful Disillusionment is one of our big boon providers, making each of our shatters apply a different boon. In Inspiration, Mender's Purity will remove conditions when we use our healing skill. We can take any of the minor traits. Medic's Feedback spawns a feedback bubble which reflects projectiles and slowly revives allies as we begin to revive them. Restorative Mantras will pulse a huge heal whenever we finish channeling a mantra, and Sympathetic Visage will Condi cleanse allies when we spawn a phantasm. I personally like to take Restorative Mantras for the huge heal. Inspiring Distortion grants aegis to allies whenever we gain distortion. With the Master trait, we can once again pick whatever we want. Warden's Feedback will reduce the focus skill cooldowns if we are using a focus. This also causes focus skills to reflect projectiles. Ego Restoration gives us a clone when we use a heal skill. This is very strong with Mantra of Recovery as it spawns a clone when channeling the mantra and for each of the 2 charges afterwards. Temporal Enchanter can be used to grant more super speed and resistance when using a glamour skill. My personal pick is Ego Restoration for the massive amount of clone generation, which is important for later on. Illusionary Inspiration is one of our main sources of healing. Whenever we summon an illusion, we heal our allies, and also our healing to allies is increased by 15%. This means that if we summon a phantasm, that triggers the trait. Then once the phantasm turns into a clone, it triggers it once more. With the amount of clones and phantasm generation this build has, this trait pumps out a huge amount of consistent healing. Restorative Illusions as our Grandmaster trait is another source of healing. When we use a shatter skill, we heal ourselves and allies based on the amount of clones that we shatter. Lots of clones, lots of shatter, lots of boons, and lots of healing. The Chronomancer trait line is pretty standard. All's Well That Ends Well makes our wells heal allies. Improved Alacrity reduces our skill cooldowns even more when under the effects of Alacrity. And then for the Grandmaster trait, we use either Stretch Time or Seize the Moment depending on if we want to give Alacrity or Quickness when using Shatters and summoning Phantasms. When it comes to skills, it's mostly personal preference. I like to take Mantra of Recovery for the heal skill due to its synergy with Restorative Mantras and Ego Restoration. However, Well of Eternity is also a viable healing option. Well of Action is a must. It grants long duration might and fury, and it also heals thanks to All's Well That Ends Well. For the other utility skills, I like to use Well of Precognition for stability and aegis, or Mantra of Resolve for condition cleanse. Mantra of Pain is a good source of constant might generation and frequent pulses of restorative mantras as it only has a 1-second cooldown. Other excellent utility skills are Feedback for Reflects. This also has great synergy with Medic's Feedback as it will also slowly revive allies. Mantra of Concentration for more access to stability. Blink for mobility. Mimic if you want to use another utility skill twice. Portal for, well, portaling. And of course Illusion of Life if you want to troll your friends by reviving them, only for them to drop dead seconds later. Ultimately, the choice is yours. The elite skill is entirely personal preference once again. Mower for massive single target CC, Gravity Well for AoE CC and the heal, Mass Invis for squad wide invisibility, or time warp for a little bit of quickness and super speed. When it comes to weapons, gear and stats, you guessed it, it's up to personal preference again. Staff is a very good weapon for sharing Chaos Aura and regeneration. It spawns 2 phantasms at a time, which will trigger illusionary inspiration 4 times, and it also has Chaos Storm for swiftness, resolution and Aegis. I also like to use Scepter and Shield for more clone generation, and Tides of Time gives lots of might and swiftness. Offhand Pistol is good for CC, Focus is good for pulling in groups of mobs with Temporal Curtain, and Offhand Sword is good if you want to feel like you're doing damage. For sigils, I like to use Sigil of Water for a little bit of extra healing, and Sigil of Transference for a 10% healing modifier to allies. For armor stats, Harriers is great for maximum boon duration. Givers and Minstrels are also extremely good if you're going to be tanking. For maximum healing, I like to use a mix of Clerics and Magi's for as much healing power as possible, but the boon duration is a little bit on the lower side, so it can be quite tricky to upkeep. For general usage, I would recommend full Minstrels, as in my opinion, if you're playing this build, you should probably also be tanking. It has high boon duration to guarantee boon uptimes and is very survivable. Runes of the Monk and Relic of the Monk are ideal, however Rune of Water is also a good option for those who don't want to be running dungeons for runes. For our food and utilities, we can use fruit salad with mint garnish or delicious rice balls for increased healing to allies and healing power, along with mist-infused maintenance oils or bountiful maintenance oils for more increased healing to allies. When it comes to playing this build, simply keep summoning phantasms and clones as much as possible for constant healing and boons, making sure to shatter at 3 clones for lots more boons and healing thanks to our traits. Well of Action should be used as frequently as possible for Might and Fury. The same goes for Tides of Time if using Shield and Chaos Aura on staff. For those mantra enjoyers out there, make sure to keep channeling and blasting all of the charges from your mantra as frequently as possible to make full use of restorative mantras, blasting out massive heals every few seconds. I'll finish off here with a quick demo in the Golem Arena, healing up one of my friends through the damaging aura. Thank you all for watching, and if you have any questions, don't be afraid to leave them down below. I try to get back to everyone. Thanks for watching again, and I'll see you all next time. Welcome to super secret maths spreadsheet time. This is just a spreadsheet I've put together for all of the builds and their healing per second, as well as a bit of survivability. I'll go over minstrels as an example of the spreadsheet. So we've got our stats, our healing to allies modifier, and then we've got our skills at the top here. These skills are based off of a 285 second log of me just practicing rotations and stuff on the golem. Our calculations are based off of our in-game calculations. So for regeneration, we have 130 plus 12.5% of our healing power, and then that is modified by our allied healing modifiers. So we add an extra 62% on top of that, giving us 529 regeneration ticks. We've done the same for restorative mantras: All's Well That Ends Well, Restorative Illusions, Illusionary Inspiration, and Mantra of Recovery. Gives us a total healing per second of 4,121 for minstrels. Then for our armor rating, our survivability, we have our base mesmer armor value up here in ascended gear, 1,967. Then we have our minstrels ascended armor value of 3,139, giving us a effective strike damage reduction comparing the two by 59.58%. Our effective health is then 35,510 because we are taking that reduced strike damage. Over on the right hand side here as well, we can compare if we have 50% incoming condition damage and 50% incoming strike damage. So we're taking half and half condi, half power damage. Power damage here, heavily reduced, power plus condi, giving us a survivability rating. This rating is just the incoming damage divided by our health, or health divided by the incoming damage, I should say. We then have an arbitrary survivability score, or build score if you want to call it that, where we have our rating multiplied by our boon duration. We're multiplying it by the boon duration just because high boon duration is good for the build, therefore why not incorporate it into the score. And then of course we're also multiplying by our healing per second, because lots of healing, very good, we like healing. So 50-50, Minstrels gets a pretty good survivability score. And then we can go ahead and have a look at Harriers. Harriers, no strike damage reduction because it has no extra toughness. Its score is still, no, it's not terrible, it's still quite good. This is because we have very high boon duration, 100% boon duration, extremely good for us. Magi's and Clerics, survivability, it's not quite as good as Minstrels. Our score is quite low though. We may have very high healing per second, but the boon duration is low, and for a boon build, low boon duration is, it's questionable. Givers very strong, lots of toughness, lots of armor. We have almost 70% reduced strike damage compared to our base Mesmer. Healing per second is a bit lower because healing power isn't main stat on Givers, but the score is still quite good purely because of that reduced incoming damage. We've even got Celestial down here. Celestial's score is the lowest of them all, I think. Yep, Celestial, lowest of them all, but it does have the added benefit of damage. We love damage on Celestial. Wouldn't really recommend playing it, it's more of an advanced build thing, but it's still interesting. Low healing per second, medium boon duration, but yeah, good fun if you just want to have a mess around. But yeah, that's my spreadsheet with all of our ratings. One other thing I should point out is if we have less than 26% of our damage coming in from conditions, so if we have condition damage as 25% and 75% of our damage is coming from strike damage, then our armor ratings are a little bit different, where Givers starts to just take ahead of Minstrels. So if we are taking no damage from conditions whatsoever, Givers is just arguably better for survivability, but that requires gear changing and stuff and all this nonsense. So Minstrels, very good well-rounded build. You got your vitality, you got your toughness for surviving. Boon duration, still very high, 80%, almost 80% is very high, and the healing per second is extremely good. So yeah, that's my little spreadsheet here. I might leave a link to it in the description if those maths people really like it or care, you know. But I thought I'd just go over the calculations I did for the builds. Thanks, and yeah, once again, thanks for watching.